And GSSB Chair Carol Adams.
Present.
Thank you, everyone. GSSB members Anna Nefedova and Deborah Ing sent their apologies. I will now hand over to the Chair, Carol Adams, to open the meeting.
Thank you very much, Gillian, and welcome to everybody. Very nice to see you all here in Amsterdam. Just a reminder to press the little button when you want to speak. And when you do want to speak, please say your name before you speak so that people know who you are online. The first item today is to approve the summary of the meeting held on 20th of February. Does anybody have any comments, corrections on that summary? Okay, excellent. We can take that as approved then. Thank you. The second item is to review the GSSB action points. Does anybody have any comments on the action points? No? Okay. Oh, Tomu.
Yeah. Are you sure the first one? Yeah. And the first one is the first XBR taxonomy things, and I understand it's completed, but also, if possible, I also wish to help on this part of action.
So this is the first action point there, and I didn't catch what you said, Tomu.
No, if possible, I wish to be enlisted as a group
Oh.
of GSSB volunteers.
Fantastic. We'll leave that with Bastian then to organize.
Noted, and just to put a point in time to it, we're releasing the taxonomy as the next step, but then there will be an update to the taxonomy with recently revised standards, and that is where we will call on the GSP again. Yeah? So we'll take note of this and inform the colleagues.
Thank you. And there are a number of items which we will be discussing today on that action list. Thank you. So the next item is the sector standards project for financial services and addition to the technical committee. Are there any comments on that proposal? Anybody want to speak to it? You don't have to.
Maybe just to highlight, then we have a proposal for substitution of 3 members in each of the technical committees for financial services, banking, capital markets, and insurance. And these changes do not change the stakeholder composition or the geographical composition of the groups.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody have any comments on this proposal? Tomu.
Hi, sorry again. Just I want to clarify about this table 1, the composition of the constituency according to the different sector standards. And I saw these investment institutions and like banking for 2 and 2 for banking, 5 for capital markets, and 2 for insurance. So it's just I wonder why having 5 investment institutions for the capital markets.
Yes, so I think it's a reflection that also one of the main activities in capital markets is investment. So we wanted to have a stronger composition in that group, but also recognizing that in banking and insurance also they perform investing activities, but it's not the core of the business.
Okay, thank you. And there is coordination across these 3 groups anyway, isn't there? Thank you very much. Okay, so can I take that as approved? Seeing no dissension, yes, we can approve that change. Thank you very much. The next item is for each member to give a short update on any particular thing that they want to say that's happening in their region. I'll start briefly just to give everybody a chance to think, and then I'm going to move around the room to my left. So Igazuma will be next. I just to say that Bastian and I attended the Accounting Standards Setters Conference in Italy last week in Naples, which was very interesting. We had some good conversations, for example, with the Taiwanese and Zimbabwean representatives, where GRI standards are explicitly mandated, and they seemed very proud of that fact. And also the representative from India, where the SEBI requirements are aligned with GRI standards. And there were others that we spoke to that are keen to collaborate with us. And we spent some time with the chair of the Japanese Sustainability Standards Board, where we do have an MOU to collaborate, and we were discussing how that collaboration would proceed from now on. We have also submitted consultation responses to the Public Sector Accounting Standards Board, IPSASB, about the importance of reporting on impacts for the public sector, because they have a purpose to have a positive impact on people, the environment, and economies. I'll leave my brief few words there and pass on to my left.
This is Igazuma. Just to provide a brief update of what's happening in, I would say, our region, which is Africa, Sub-Saharan Africa mainly. And we have seen, I would say, in the last 3-6 months, we've really seen an increase in the sustainability requirements from the financial sector, notably banking services. So I think this is really a good time for companies to uptake the GRI standards now that we have moved on with our financial services standards. Previously, lenders and local investors haven't had a much interest in Africa, but I see that with a lot of corporations, they are now actually setting up ESG teams in banks, especially in Nigeria. In Uganda and Kenya, this has been the practice, but in Nigeria, we have ESG teams growing, and there's an increasing demand for standards to follow. Because the ISSB standards are mandatory in Nigeria, for instance, from 2027, there is a space for corporations to find standards that they want to be audited by, or they want to report their ESG performances on. So this is one of the really major highlights that we have seen in the uptake of sustainability practices. The next is the skills gap. There is an apparent skill gap. There is a higher demand and requests for certifications and trainings. And I would say that the Africa region particularly would need more partners on GRI, more GRI partners, because we've had a lot of those inquiries of how do we get GRI certifications in the Africa region? And I do not think that we have enough partners to meet the demands of the area. So this is something that I know that the regulators and the accounting bodies in Africa are trying to fill a gap. And I think it's also an opportunity for GRI. Thank you.
You can keep that open. Thank you. So this is Yendong speaking. We actually observe similar trend in China as well, and similar to Africa. So in China, actually in 2024, it's kind of a historical momentum, I would say. In February, the country has, or the stock exchange markets in the country, the 3 stock exchange market has published requirements on kind of ESG disclosures for the companies who is on the stock exchange market. And in April 2024, it's the finance ministry who also published it's similar to a guidance of companies to disclose their ESG requirements, but this is the first step of the whole country to start promoting companies to disclose ESG requirements. So we can say there's a growing interest of the companies to trying to understand what they should do, how they should do, and also the standard is not really there yet. It's a very general standard that we have now. I think we were investigating quite a lot of like specifically textile industries or steel industries, and they really feel the need of understanding the international ESG landscapes. Because one thing is about internal requirements on the ESG on the ESG disclosure from China. Another thing is that they also need to trade with European unions or US or the rest of the world.
Absolutely.
So they're trying to figure out what exactly is required. And we know that Europe have a changing requirements on the ESG disclosures in the past few months. So there's a huge need of training, of information sharing from their side. So I think this will be a really nice opportunities for GRI to step in and helping a little bit and try to figure out how to get good information to the Chinese companies who's really in need of those things. So we're also trying to, or try to set up GRI with the China National Institute of Standards and trying to say how could we kind of cooperate with the national institutes to move forward the collaborations. So let's hope it's going to the right direction soon. Yeah, thank you.
Susanna Muscat here. I don't have any specific update on the GRI yet. I just wanted to flag one thematic issue that we, as ITUC, we recently came across and we are trying to analyze, and that is the use of AI-driven solutions for business, specifically for screening of due diligence risks, specifically in the context of supply chains. These new trends, it seems, have specific new challenges and risks, and there is no regulation. So I wanted to flag it maybe for the purpose of our discussion later.
Okay, Galia Tsonkova here. In Europe, as everybody knows, within the ESRS, the first companies already were obliged, the listed companies were obliged to report. So the company that I represent also issued this Friday the first sustainability statement, 140 pages, plus the GRI index, 57 pages. So we were full with people reporting and doing the things within compliance and within the voluntary frameworks like GRI. The other important issue is that after creating the ESRS, now the European Commission is thinking about omnibus, which is to simplify a bit because they realize it's difficult to interpret, difficult to report. It requires resources only for reporting, not for performance. So we as a company, we are preparing some package through our industry associations, because we are working through the industry associations in order to provide some guidance and some objections how omnibus could work and how the work could be simplified.
Charles Cho here. In Canada, I'll jump on the new omnibus issue because Canadian companies have lots of operations in Europe, and it has been quite impacted in a way that they're going to do. I sit on the CP Ontario Strategic Sustainability Advisory Committee, which is the professional body, and a lot of talk about this topic as well. And the formation of the Canadian Sustainability Standard Board, the CSSB, they have launched a strategic vision call to get some feedback, very much aligned with what the ISSB is going to do, with some indigenous perspective and a topic specific to Canada that they will broaden. The last meeting I had with the CP Ontario was quite divided in terms of should we follow ISSB or not, but I think the CSB will do that. And I think in terms of the GRI presence, I think we still do that quite a bit, but there is this tension going on with the profession. So the accounting profession is very involved in Canada to tackle those things. There is also the new competency map of the CPA exam for professional accountants, and also the debate of what will be taught, what will be tested in terms of standards. So very much a moving environment in Canada as well. Thank you.
Hi, Tomo Machiba from Japan, and already, Carol mentioned, and Japan Sustainability Standard Body about SSBJ, and just launched their standards and a few weeks ago, and only targeting quite big listed companies, and beginning from 2027. So impact itself is not necessarily big enough, but at the same time, this is the first kind of compulsory reporting scheme. So it's people carefully watching it. And also impact of this omnibus package, and from European Union, it's kind of people having a mixed feeling. And I talked with the Japan Business Association based in Brussels, and I think many companies already quite prepared for this, CSRD based disclosure based on ESRS, and preparing for thousands of data points. And somehow that was kind of means to justify spending money for ESG for many companies. Now this omnibus creating the vacuum, and maybe many companies will struggle to justify and spending resources for the ESG, and including the GRI reporting. Thank you.
Hello, good morning. Felipe Martinez here. So my comments from Europe are very similar to what Galia mentioned. We are working now with the first package of the Omnibus regulation amending the CSRD, also the due diligence directive, which has not been implemented yet and is already being amended, which may sound a bit. Yeah. Also with the taxonomy and with the CBAM. And I think that in this changing landscape, companies appreciate having a solid set of standards like GRI. We are still assessing how this omnibus package is affecting the industry. And we are also working through our industry associations in Brussels. But in principle, we think that it will not have a major impact for the biggest industries, but because they are changing some of the thresholds for applicability, but it will impact for sure many smaller industries.
This is Chulendra from Sri Lanka. We've been working well with the GRI India team to bring in the apparel sector, to work with apparel sector companies in Sri Lanka with regard to implementing the GRI standards more fully. Right now, it's just a few of the the top tier apparel manufacturers that are on GRI. They're fully on GRI. So you see two ends of the spectrum, the companies that are fully into the GRI standards and into sustainability reporting, IFRS, moving towards the ISSB as well. And then you have the other spectrum of SMEs who are yet not in that fold. So there is also a Sustainable Development Council working in Sri Lanka under the Ministry of Industries, which is trying to bring in this concept called ISBs, or Inclusive and Sustainable Businesses, which they have specifically mentioned is going to be based on an impact reporting, and they too have started working with GRI India, have introduced the GRI India team of Aditi to work with them on those. Funnily, there is also, it's the same companies that are doing a lot in terms of their sustainability performance using GRI standards that are also at the same time now looking at how they can transition into IFRS reporting. And this has created a requirement for a transition plan, so to speak, of how do they use what they have currently to move towards an ISSB and IFRS S1, S2 reporting framework. It's those companies have been asking what is the process to go by. So it's not where they're trying to keep GRI out, but how do we build on top of that, starting from impacts and then going to risk opportunities. The financial services sector standards was very welcome. That was something that we really didn't have some kind of guidance or guideline on how banks and financial institutions should report on. It was always very rudimentary in terms of material topics, but I think this standard would definitely help. So yeah, it's been we see a lot of potential going forward. I think our entire discussion of how impacts transition to risk opportunities is going to be an important step, especially for companies that are already inbuilt or a kind of integrated system from a GRI perspective, how they use that to then move towards an IFRS reporting regime as well.
Thank you. Anne Lindsay from the International Transport Workers Federation. So ITF does very much take a global view rather than focusing on a particular country or region. However, obviously, we've been very interested in some of the recent developments with the omnibus because of the knock-on impact. At the same time, I suppose I'd highlight for our discussions today that is a range of conflicting trends, I think, moving in different directions. So whilst the omnibus is, as we've already heard, I think, looking at potentially changing things before they've even bedded down properly or been translated into national laws, at the same time, many companies have already actively put systems in place, beefed up their sustainability teams, remain concerned. So we're getting concerns from large companies to better understand, for example, risks to transport workers, particularly within value chains. So I think these conflicting trends are really important. On one hand, we've got actually more information coming through, and there's this real question about disclosure, not as an end in itself, but to drive better understanding of impacts and the ways to improve performance in those ways. At the same time, I think it's really important, and from the union perspective, we're looking at how to ensure that regulatory changes aren't then undermining the positive progress that's been made so far, particularly that none of the changes that are proposed would have a chilling effect on where progressive companies are already engaging down the value chain.
Hi, good morning. This is Rebecca Coriat from the UK, representing the investor constituency. From our point of view, some of the concerns that we're seeing, and they relate as well to what Lindsay has said, is the two speeds we think we're going to start seeing. On the one hand, the larger companies, which we hope will continue to report as they have set up to doing. But then on the other hand, the smaller companies that will not be forced to do that will probably remain in that category. So we had set up our system with the idea that all companies would report under the same considerations, which helps our investment process. But now with this divergence, we're going to be in a situation where we don't have comparable data across companies. And that has always been a concern. And it is a concern and will continue to be a concern. So on the what to do about that, some of the things we're thinking about is how could we as investors try to encourage companies, smaller companies, to go beyond what they are required to do from a regulatory perspective so that we can bring the levels up.
Thank you. And Julia.
Yes, thanks. So I am Giulia Genuardi from Italy and NL Group. So I think that in Italy we have a strange situation in this moment because we are one of the countries that approved the new requirements that the CSRD asked, and we maintain with this kind of approval. So in this moment we have specific requirement by national law, and we have a really change at European level. I think I haven't any additional comment with respect to what Galia said, and especially what Rebecca said at the last comment, because in this moment I think that is not only the issue that we are redefining the target and the KPIs that is most important, and we have again a big opportunity to redefine in the correct way and especially in the common way. Because in this moment, if you are an Italian company, you have requirement by CSRD that we have integrated in our regulation. We have a change at European level. We have investors that ask us something different because they need to compare the information of the different companies. So in this moment, the costs that we have as a company are terrible. So it's absolutely necessary that we try a single view rapidly, and especially that Europe consider Europe as a single universe always, because for the first time, Italian government was really rapidly to approve this kind of regulation. And in this case, is something that create a penalty in terms of competitiveness in this moment. So I think that we are in a strange moment in this way, but I support totally what Rebecca and Galia said before.
Thank you, Julia. And Jeff.
Yes, thanks, Carol. Hi, everyone. Jeff Robertson from Canada and representing the Business Enterprise constituency. Since my colleagues have already touched on Omnibus quite a bit, I'll go in a different direction, but it really is the main sort of pressing item for Canadian businesses right now. I think over 1,000 Canadian companies are implicated by CSRD in one form or another, depending on what form it finally takes. So that's kind of the elephant in the room at the moment. But some other updates since our last in-person meeting related to Canada. One is our CSSB, the Canadian Sustainability Standards Board, has adopted their ISSB aligned standards. They also extended the grace and transition period for Scope 3 and financed emissions by an additional 3 years. So quite a change. I think they were originally planned for mandatory reporting in 2025, and that's all been delayed till 2028 and 2029. So that's a major update. And the other one, which folks may have heard of, is we have a new Prime Minister in Canada. And he, as one of the first actions, has canceled the consumer carbon charge. This comes in a context where the Liberal Party is still largely in favor of the carbon tax as a policy matter, but they acknowledge that it's been very politically divisive and so have canceled the consumer portion of it. The business portion is still in place, but the context here is that Canada has failed to meet all of our emission reduction targets so far. But we remain committed, at least in terms of announced targets, to Paris-aligned emission reductions. So I'll leave it there, and back to you, Carol. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everybody. And with that, we finish our first public session. We will return for a public session at 1:45. But for now, if we could move to a private session, please, Gillian, and stop the live.